But this is about basketball. This is about the Warriors being 17-19. And whether you listened to Draymond Green yesterday or not, whether you were impressed with what he said, whether you don't care, whether you've heard it a million times, doesn't matter. The reality of the situation, Evan, is that we're here again. We're at another kind of new starting point with the Golden State Warriors. That's the way I look at it. Draymond likely won't play tonight against the Pelicans. 5:30 start at Chase Center, by the way, but the suspension's behind him. He's practicing with the team. We're kind of in a new phase, and that's where we are. We're 17-19. We got the Pelicans tonight. Then we go on the road for 4. We're going to get Draymond back during that 4-game stretch. Now what? The trading deadline's in 30 days, essentially. Let's talk about the next month.
And Draymond Green's name is eventually and inevitably going to come up because I think his season has been a little representative of the Warriors, which is a roller coaster ride, a seesaw affair, and where Draymond was talking yesterday about that being a potential turning point in his life or his growth or whatever you want to label it. People are more curious if this is also a turning point for the Warriors because it looks like you're going to get your best defensive player back soon. We don't know what day yet, but it does appear it's coming soon. Does that mean anything? Does that mean that the Warriors all of a sudden going to be able to get right? Does Draymond Green factor into this? How does he help, their litany of issues at this point? And I think that's what I also took away from Steve Kerr, who spoke a lot yesterday, both at the press conference as well as with Willard and Dibbs, is this is about basketball. Like, this is about trying to figure out where this season is going, where we're going to end up, what our ceiling is, what our floor might be, and just how we're going to get this thing right, because the Warriors got so many problems right now that tend to change on a nightly basis that, yes, Draymond Green was the story of yesterday, but the story of today is a team that's 2 games under 500.
Exactly. And where do they go from here? The couple basketball questions I have, and by the way, we're poised to have a big guest today.
I can't wait.
I mean, we're 99% locked into this guy. Trying to think if I should tease the tease people. Spadoni, don't you know? Do you not know? Okay.
Sometime
I'll tell you what.
Later on?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 11 o'clock hour Spadone. Let me see. Hey, Spadone, you know who we might have? You better be careful.
Who? Don't be disrespectful.
Yeah. Stephen A. Smith. The Stephen A. Smith.
You better be careful.
Apparently he's giving Nahegian the, I'm joining the guys after 11. I'll text you. We'll figure it out. Stephen A. Smith. Sometime after 11. He's been very vocal, surprise, on the Draymond Green, Steve Kerr thing. So Stephen A. Smith will be in the house. Not literally in the house, but he'll be on the show. He'll join us sometime after 11. Here's a question for a Warrior fan. Draymond Green going to start when he comes back? Friday. It's either going to be Friday, let's say Chicago, Saturday, Milwaukee. Draymond starting? Does it matter?
Adam, it's too much for me.
Does it happen? What's the lineup you roll out? What's the lineup that you want to kind of seek out in the future? What's Draymond's role? Minutes limit? All that kind of thing. Here's the other thing. This is the basketball one that really hit me, though. It's the one regarding our 2 forwards. And I'll just bring this up. What are we going to do with our forward Andrew Wiggins, do you think?
I'm inclined to move him. I think that's where this thing is heading. And we talked about yesterday whether the Warriors would make a move or not. Both you and I are on the same page that I think there is going to be a move. And with what the games have shown us, with what Andrew Wiggins has shown us, I think he's the odd man out. I think he's someone that if you can't play him, like, this is a league that is dominated primarily by wings. If you have a wing that can't play and he's supposed to be one of your better players, I just don't know what you do with him. And I think he's a big reason why Steve Kerr's rotations, decision-making, and everything under the sun has been made a lot more difficult. He's not the only reason, of course, but to me, the two guys that I had big questions about coming into this year were the guy who's been indefinitely suspended and Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins missed a couple months last year, and he did not look like the same player that he was during the championship season. And he's had now more than 30 games to prove that he could get back to that place, and he hasn't been able to do it.
This was Steve Kerr. This is where I'm kind of glad. I'm not glad, but you're going to provide a different perspective than Guru, because when I set up what I'm going to set up, if you were Guru, he would not want to hear it. But I think this is something that we can all acknowledge at this point.
The reality is, where we've been the last 3 weeks without Draymond, our defense has really suffered. I think I mentioned it earlier, 27th in the league, something like that. So in theory, you want to get, your two most athletic wings on the floor together for defensive purposes. But we have, a lot of things with this team that we're always trying to accomplish. So while that combination may, on paper, look like it might do something, it might alter other combinations. It might not work as well in a different area. So we have the tape and we have analytics, and frankly, both of them have pointed us in the direction of not playing those two together. And it's simple as that. So it hasn't been very successful. We're trying to win games. We're trying to sort it all out. But we have to experiment, but we also have to be realistic about what we think is going to work.
If you want to talk about basketball, I think this right now is maybe the biggest issue with the Golden State Warriors. Jonathan Kaminga and Andrew Wiggins. And we're going to try to get back to basketball. So Steve Kerr was asked about playing Kaminga and Wiggins together, and he gave a very long answer. And at the very end, he said, but the bottom line is, I'm less inclined to do it. The reason he's less inclined to play Kaminga and Wiggins together is because he knows that it's not a long-term solution, and it's probably not best for the team because they don't bring out the best in each other. Okay? We got a problem. Because if this team is whole, Andrew Wiggins is your second or third best player, and Kaminga's your third or fourth best player. If things begin to max out. So how can you have two of your top four players, in theory, not be able to play together? I know that's a dramatic way to say it. Of course, they can play together 5 minutes at a time, 6 minutes at a time, 8 minutes at a time, maybe. But what I heard loud and clear is we've got to move one of these guys, and we would much prefer to move Andrew Wiggins. I believe, after hearing Steve Kerr's answer yesterday to that question, they're trying to move Wiggins, right? I mean, they are trying to move Andrew Wiggins. They don't want to move Kaminga because they still believe he's got a big upside. I wouldn't, if give me a choice of which guy to move there, I'd move Wiggins in a heartbeat too. What can you get for Andrew Wiggins? I don't know, but I think that's, would Warrior fans acknowledge that they also believe this team's trying to move Wiggins?
I think you have to believe that. And the analytics that Kerr is talking about support his statement from earlier in the season about the redundancy of the two players. And it's not just the fact that they play the same way. Like, they don't help each other when they're on the floor, and you can see it. And I think the exhibit A was Sunday against Toronto. You saw them get absolutely boat raced in the first half against a Toronto team that is not bad, but not very good by any means. And what did you see Toronto do? Absolutely eviscerate the Warriors with younger, quicker, athletic wings. RJ Barrett, Pascal Siakam. Like, they got up and down the floor, and if the Warriors' largest concern at this point is their defense, you heard Kerr talk about what they are when Draymond hasn't been here. Well, then you need your players, such as Kaminga and Wiggins, who have the ability or had the ability to defend at a high level. You need them to defend, and they haven't been able to do it. So if you're not even going to get defense, you know what you're giving up offensively. That's an issue. Secondly, it's not as if Wiggins is just unplayable with Kaminga right now. If you go down the lineups of the two-man combinations that do not work on the Warriors or haven't worked with the Warriors, Wiggins and Kaminga have played 146 minutes together. They're minus 20. That's bad. If you look at the second worst combination of two players that have gotten the most run, it's Wiggins and Thompson. It's Wiggins and Clay. If you just go down every two-man combination that does not play well when they're on the floor together, it generally includes Andrew Wiggins. And as much as he was a focal point, he was the second best player in the finals for a championship team, this is not the same Andrew Wiggins. This isn't even the Andrew Wiggins from Minnesota. This is the worst that he has played in his career, and it's a big reason why the Warriors are a sub-500 basketball team.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's where I always battle with, well, what can you get for a guy, and what does another team want to give up, et cetera, et cetera. So you ask, well, what team would want Wiggins? Well, what team wanted Wiggins when he was in a malaise in Minnesota? Not malaise, but what team wanted him in Minnesota? I got to believe you need to find a team just like the Warriors 4 years ago. You need a team that can bring Andrew Wiggins onto their team. He can lay low for a while, kind of figure out his environment, and then eventually in a year or two fit in and play very good basketball like he did here. Is there a team out there that can look at Wiggins the same way the Warriors looked at Wiggins 3 or 4 years ago, said, we know that he's always had a reputation of not quite reaching his potential, but we think we can get him there. They did for a while. There might be another team out there like that. I think that's very possible, but I don't know what they're going to give up. We had John Collins. Yep. That's it. John Collins. You want to trade Wiggins for John Collins in Utah?
In a heartbeat.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. Now, it's probably a lateral move. But again, all the names that people will throw out there involving Andrew Wiggins, unless you're, like, let's just put the route on the table, brought to you by Atco Pest Control. The most sought-after piece on the Golden State Warriors is Jonathan Kaminga. That is the guy that's going to net you something. That's the piece that everyone around the league is going to want a part of. That's the best possible luxury the Warriors have to trade. I don't think they're going to move him. So if you're not willing to come off Kaminga, you're going to have to, in your words, Steiny, I thought you put it well a couple of days ago, you're going to have to bite the bullet. If you move Andrew Wiggins, and I think they should, you're not going to get anything substantial back. And the idea is addition by subtraction. That's the route for the Warriors to get better at this point, because unfortunately Wiggins has not been good for pretty much the entirety of the season.
The question I have for Warrior fans at 888-957-9570 is this. It's another new beginning. It's another new start for the Warriors. Draymond's coming back. He's practicing. You're 17-19. You got a trade deadline coming up in less than a month. What do you want here, Warrior fans? You're not going to have the following players before the trade deadline. So you're not going to be able to look at Gary Payton II and Chris Paul III. They won't play before the trade deadline. Draymond Green will play before the trade deadline. He's probably going to play this weekend. So we've got Curry, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, Kaminga, Green. I'm going to throw Pods and Looney in there, and Moody. Can those 8-9 guys, Evan, come together and either get back in this thing, get 3 games over 500 in a month, or is there a move to be made in the next month that presents itself where now you make that move and you already were starting to gel a little bit, and now you can gel a little bit more and maybe get back to a 45-win team and see if you can make some noise. I mean, that's to me what the new beginning is. They're 2 under now. What can we do in the next month with 6 of our mainstays that we've all gotten to know and love for a long period of time? Does something present itself in the next month that can entice you to make a move that would galvanize more chemistry among the players, that would make the team better? So can you Can you show you're can you show you're better than 500 in the next month? And then is there a move to be made in the next month where then you could take that to the next level? 888-957-9570 is the number. But the one thing that Evan and I were talking about is kind of want to talk about basketball. Not that I want to dismiss what Draymond said, but man, there's been a lot of talking, and now the Warriors have a game tonight. Don't forget 5:30. 5:30, Chase Center.
They might be at full strength, too. You see what the Pelicans just did to the Kings a few days ago?
I did.
They were up by 50 at one point.
Light the beam.
Not that night.
They won last night, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that bet I made with Goose coming out of the wire with the Kings.
It will.
No doubt.
Did you see that game, by the way?
Which one? I saw they were up. The Pistons game?
The Pistons dropped 47 in the first quarter, lost by 20.
I saw that the Pistons were down just 3 entering the fourth, and I was like, don't watch it. They're not going to win. But those are the kind of games where I'm like, well, they lose that game, and those are tangible hurters.
Without Cade.
For Daryl the Guru Johnson.
Yeah.
888-957-9570 is the number. Draymond Green, 35 minutes. 35-minute talk yesterday.
7 questions.
7 questions,
About
35 minutes. It's a 4-minute response. So, in other words,
absolutely incredible.
So, in other words,
really
Draymond Green's answers were so long they were like Daryl the Guru Johnson's questions.
No cheap shots while Goose out.
I would run around this studio.
I got you, Goo.
I can't let you do that.
I got you.
I'm just trying to think what he would want to ask Stephen A. at this point. You think it'd be about the Cowboys?
He would ask, I think it would be more so about if he could get a job working for Stephen A. or something like that.
I think it'd be, hey, Steve,
it'd be like what Shasky did to Bob Myers for 2 years. I love you, Shasky.
What could have come out of my mouth?
I think about asking him how he got an MJ's suite for the national championship. You see him in there.
Oh, is that where it was?
Travis Scott, Derek Jeter. Yeah, well, a lot of big boys.
I recognize 2 people, Stephen A. and Michael Jordan.
You know, the captain?
Who's the captain?
Oh, boy. Number 2?
Travis Scott?
Derek Jeter.
I didn't see him. I would recognize him, but I didn't.
Biracial angel.
888-957-9570 is the number. Warriors, they play the Pelicans tonight. Zion in town. Think he's playing?
He's questionable.
So Zion's Williamson questionable. Grand Theft Alvarado. I kind of like that one.
I think Alvarado's more inclined to play. In Steve Kerr's words, Zion Williamson is less inclined to play tonight.
Less inclined.
Less inclined.
Yeah, I was less inclined to come into work today, but I ended up doing it.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. How do you think? We're sticking to basketball today. So here's what Steve Kerr said about what do you do now that Draymond's back with the team and his return timeline, et cetera.
Well, he loves playing, so he's excited to be back, and he's been relatively quiet. He was here at our walkthrough two days ago. He was in the facility yesterday too, getting a lot of work in. So this is really the 3rd day that he's been around, and he's just trying to get his work in and trying to get ready. He's been relatively quiet. I think he knows he's coming back in a manner in which he has to show deference to the group because of where we are and his part and what's happened in the season so far.
What do you think Draymond's role will be? The same as it ever was?
So a couple weeks ago, we talked about how Draymond Green would probably come off the bench, or I think the Warriors would be better for him coming off the bench. I do think the Chris Paul injury affects that. And I think it affects it in the way that I would still like to see him come off the bench because I would like to see how Draymond could be the playmaker for the second unit in CP3's absence.
Well, then you're starting like Saric, right?
I think
you're
still starting Looney or TJD.
But what about Kaminga and Wiggins? So Wiggins and Draymond would come off the bench.
Yes,
under that scenario. I'm with you there.
A starting 5 would be for the first couple games until we see what Draymond looks like and if he's still at a high level. So Curry, Clay, Pods, Kaminga, and then one of the two between Looney and TJD.
You're still starting Pods.
Yes. Yeah, he would come back into the starting lineup. And Clay would move to the 3. Kaminga would play the 4. And then, but again, the question is who would close? Like,
right.
Ideally, your best defensive unit should be with Kaminga and Wiggins on the floor and Draymond at the 5. But I don't know how long Kerr wants to give that. Like, I don't know if Kerr even wants to see that anymore. Like, if they couldn't play together with Draymond off the floor, I don't know if Draymond's going to be able to glue them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I look at it like this. Can Wiggins and Kaminga play together? No, not really. But if you have to play them together just to get by at points, then Draymond has to be on the floor with them because they need somebody who can aid them offensively and defensively, quite frankly. But I do what I've and this is kind of what the theme of today's show is at 888-957-9570. Just hearing Steve Kerr, knowing Draymond's coming back, but hearing Steve Kerr essentially say he's less inclined now more than ever to play Kaminga and Wiggins together. He's less inclined to do it now than he ever has. Well, we got to move Wiggins then. Or Kaminga, but I think we know they'd rather move Wiggins. But to me, what I heard loud and clear through all the noise yesterday with Draymond and Steve Kerr is from a basketball standpoint, they got to be trying to move Andrew Wiggins.